So, it is 2 p.m. Let us start. Good afternoon, dear participants in the conference. It's good to see you all here. Thank you very much for your attention, our session of section, and let me express my gratitude to organizers of this conference, especially for Professor. I'm Sofia Kafka, moderator of our session 1 under the title Sustainable and Efficient Use of Energy, Renewable, Smart and Green Energy Development. And let me introduce the head of our session, Victoria Margasova, professor at Chernihiv Polytechnic National University. The welcome word to the plenary session is given to Professor Margasova. Please. So, if we have a few seconds, I want to say a few words from myself, and I want to notice that there are so difficult times for our country, but the belief in the victory of Ukraine and the necessity of after-war economic rebuilding of our country have gathered us online today at such important conference. And I wish you fruitful work, interesting report and papers, lively scientific discussions, and sustainable results for the sake of our country. I want to notice that there are 9 reports which were submitted and included in our section. They deal with urgent aspects of sustainable and efficient use of renewables, smart and green energy development. Due to our online presentations, uh, let us take a decision how long these reports will last. I propose 7 or 10 minutes for each speaker. Do you have any other suggestions? No? So 7 or 10 minutes for each presentation is accepted. I also would like to know if there is a need in some technical assistance during the presentations. I mean, concern switch on or off your presentation file. If you have some needs, you can write me in chat of this presentation. So I want to ask one more if Professor Margasova is here. Okay, let us start and maybe she connecting later. First of all, let's start with our first presentation, the title of which is Does Green Governance Efficiently Matters in Sustainable Environmental Implementation for Open Data and Public Procurement by Volodymyr Streltsov. And the floor is given to Mr. Streltsov. Please.
Thank you, dear colleagues. It's a great pleasure to take part in conference.
Because it is very loud.
Okay. I try to manage volume. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it's better. It's loud. Dear colleague, it's really a pleasure to take part in conference. Unfortunately, on plenary session we change some consequences, during which some speakers are not deliver their presentation, and we change consequences of speakers on section. Dear Sophia, thank you. Thank you for such possibilities, and I would like to present certain extent of. I don't see how can I manage this presentation. Dear Sophia, can you give me a right to deliver a presentation, because I don't see any possibilities to share my screen. Or should I send you my
Yes, you have all rights. You should do it yourself.
Okay. Because I don't see any. I try one more time to exit, but I don't see any possibilities to share presentation.
So in front of the screen, you can see the bottom with the square, and in front of the screen. Please.
Okay. I see. Oh, okay. I see.
Press it and.
Yeah. I see. Okay. Thanks.
So your presentation is here.
Yeah. I see that.
Start. Thank you.
Because it's some difficulties with in some moment working with Google Meet presentation, but now I'm working hardly with Teams.
Okay, we understand. It's nice.
I try to find this.
It's some technical nuance, yes.
Yeah. Dear colleagues, I would like to present some issues concerning the balance between green attitude and green approach for open data and for all questions concerning with public procurement. And because after several changes in EU policy concerning Green Deal challenges, some traditional approaches for open data as some kind of possibility to receive information and creation common approaches for administrative procedures are not so obvious and not so single matter, in this space. Concerning European Green Deal challenges, such policy tool as open data and public procurement is growing the policy sector which try to promote green and inclusive growth. We are trying to concentrate on several definition. Definition of green governance efficiency, open data, and green open data, and green public procurement. In this case, I would like to put a stress on main element of such construction like green open data and green public procurement. It's efficiency approach which help to define what are the main goal of our activity in the sustainability. And as you see, main approach for estimating green governance efficiency is laid down on achieving high economic output with minimal environmental costs. if you took a look on countries which have most coal consumption in the world, we see that two countries from EU, Germany and Poland, have one of the highest rank of using of coal consumption. And we don't not take into account China, which are the biggest polluter in the world, according to the consumption of coal. But we see that also other countries like Germany and Poland, especially Poland, which are approximately 50% of energy produced from the coal station. And also Germany start to speak about reanimation of their coal industry and about introducing coal electro station, because we see the great problem with gas, with Russian gas deliveries, and also other countries of the region try to reactivate the coal electro station. And according to this estimation, now that this coal electro station have the highest degree of CO2 emission, coefficient, and one of the highest level of pollution in EU. You can find on different map that Poland has for long period, such region like Silesian region, especially region of Warsaw region and Mazowieckie voivodeship is also one of the biggest emissioners of CO2. And if we see on this side of green open data, we should take into account how many electricity are generated from the coal electro station and other kind of high CO2 emission plant. And in this case, we try to concentrate on several indicators which are used in EU country to evaluate open data maturity. And I would like to ask and to try to find a solution for my hypothesis. Do we need such indicator like green open data in this maturity report? Because in standard indicators, we can find four kinds of different options. Data policy, data portal, impact of open data, and quality of open data, and any kind of sustainability, or put a green deal in the maturity report, which can help public bodies and public institutions implement much more greener open data policy in the institution. And also we should take into account another kind of activity, public administration activity, like public procurement, which also hardly invest in sustainability and receiving much more greener economy and much more greener public administration, as you want. And according to the European Commission definition, green public procurement based on procure good services works with the lowest environmental impact, as we see in green governance definition. We should receive highest impact with lowest influence on environment. And such kind of approaches for open data and public procurement can address several environmental problems. Deforestation, lower greenhouse gas emission, better waste management, and also it helps keep clear air and water and soil. And we don't see now any huge changes in open data policy. Some changes were made in public procurement in European Union, which try to estimate such voluntary instrument like green public procurement. It's not mandatory for public procurement in EU countries, but I hope during next decade such green public procurement instrument would be obligatory for member states, and when they are contracting different services and works, they should take into account the level of pollution, such kind of work or such a kind of services. And we see also that main accent in circular economy in EU is put on waste management. And also we see that now producers have an extended responsibility, and also this process of ensuring sustainable development and better environmental impact is based on producer side and consumer attitude. And only one research has been made during the last 5 years. In 2015, 2018, European Commission produced such a report based on behavioral study on consumer engagement. And you see that 3 years ago, the vast majority of consumers don't have many information about how can be used against different parts of our product. Yeah, you see that substantial share have not repaired products in the past. Yeah. It's the typical attitude within European customers. And you see that such a reason for this low engagement in circular economy based on the lack of information regarding product durability and repairability. We know that if we took some electronic devices in our market, that we only take these devices and we have some problems with this product, we don't have any possibility to repair in case of some products, yeah, because we don't have any possibility to go to the repair shop because this firm, for example, don't have any dealers or any branch which help us to repair this product. And according to our model, how can we assess green governance efficiency concerning open data and public procurement? We try to develop such model based on input and output relaxation. Yeah. And what are the main inputs of such model? Yeah. We try to put in this model investment on environmental governance. Yeah, how much money is spent on different environmental programs. Yeah. Second part of this input is level of energy consumption within public institution, and the third part of input is waste gas discharge. This is 3 components which have made the influence on the input of these models, and on the output we have also three different categories. The first category is GDP. Second category is closely connected with level of consumer engagement in circular economy, and the third option is based on CO2 emission at national level. And according to this model, we have some research limitation. Yeah? It's very hard to estimate all the various factors. And we put a stress on 3 inputs in this model, but we have different kind of factors which we should take into account when we trying to build a model of such green governance efficiency. Yeah, when we measure green governance efficiency. And in some inputs and outputs, we don't have a precise data. Yeah, and due to lack of appropriate instrumental variables, we were unable to address endogeneity and simultaneity issues. And we tried to build a model which give us certain examples of green good governance practices, yeah, in different countries, different regions, and we tried to build such model based on various factors, and now we are trying to build a methodology, yeah, which are placed in such approaches, which help us to estimate the level of green governance efficiency in long-term approaches. And what are the conclusion and policy implications? Yeah, it's very interesting now to implement green open data approaches, which help us promote incentives concerning green data and help us find environmental protection action. Also, we try to estimate a three-stage DI model to calculate the green governance index and investigate the impact of green governance on sustainable development. Yeah. We put a stress mainly on public institutions, how they how can we estimate the level of green governance index in public institutions. And also we try to find a solution for certain mandatory elements which we should bring in legal acts. Yeah, such kind of provision help us to increase of level of enforceability and try to increase in the actual green open data uptake. I would like to thank you all the participants, and I would be grateful for your answers and comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Volodymyr. If you have any question about this, do ask. Okay. Okay. Maybe in chat somebody write a question. So, and please stop the okay, thank you. Stop the presentation, and thank you very much, Volodymyr. And I want to remind you about the limitation time for our presentation. We accept 7 or 10 minutes. Please remember about this. And I want to notice that you need to open your camera because we are working online, and it is very important for our organizations to see your faces here in online conference. Please, if it is not very hard to you, to open cameras and stay with us at that case. So the second paper is on investment prospect for the development of renewable energy of Ukraine in the framework of global trends. And the floor is given to Oksana Mikuluk. Oksana, are you here?
Yes,
okay.
I'm here.
You're welcome.
I have only asking for you if could you please switch on my presentation, because I will take my report from my phone.
And with pleasure, please send me your file. Okay, I write you my email, you send me your file, and I open your presentation file because I have no. Maybe I ask somebody else to take a speech with his paper, and you'll be next. Okay?
I may volunteer if you want. Hello.
Please, Rostislav. So
sorry,
please,
sorry,
yes.
May I send my presentation to the email that you
No, I
have sent it me?
I write you my own email in the chat, okay? That is right now. Please, Rostislav.
Yeah, let me just share the screen. One moment.
Yes, we see your presentation. You can start.
You see my presentation? Okay, so do you see the presentation full screen?
Yes, it is full screen. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our presentation is about waste management. So, and we are gonna speak about ad hoc mechanisms of formation of innovative and creative directions for businesses in conditions of transparency of economies. We decided to go about this to showcase a few examples of how is it done in other economies, and then give our advice on how do we think it's going to help Ukrainian economy to proceed further with respect of sustainable economies. So the traditional approach to waste management based on collection, processing, disposal, as well as incineration of waste, it involves the loss of valuable components, which is obviously not good. And adhocracy is a system, a complete opposite of bureaucracy. It's a system of flexible and informal organization and management in place of, rigid structure. There are three key points about adhocracy. One of them is that it's a highly organic structure. Organic means that it's flexible and it values external knowledge and also delegation of powers. So in these are the examples we gave from other economies. All of the examples from USA, Canada, and Germany, they are all waste management is done on the provincial and municipal levels, so it's not governed federally. Each, for example, in Germany, the municipalities like North Rhine-Westphalia, they have their own waste management facilities and laws. In Canada, the same, and in the United States as well, which means that state and local governments can undertake their own decisions with regards to taxes, in regards to how waste is managed. And so we say that in the conditions of depletion and non-renewal of most natural resources, the issue of stimulating the involvement of innovative and creative technologies for the processing of secondary resources is of utmost significance. Waste management programs should include, we will speak about what initiatives, but first we wanted to say that how we went about the research. We analyzed the amount of waste in Ukraine formed throughout the years from 2010 to 2020, and the amount of waste disposed. And we made hypothesis testing, and we found that there is no independence. So basically, those two series are dependent on each other. However, we found that the correlation between the amount of waste formed and the amount of waste disposed in Ukraine is weak. And this fact confirms the problem of waste management that needs to be addressed at different levels of management. So basically, there is no strong correlation between the amount of waste produced and the amount of waste recycled. And so here is the amount of waste produced. By the way, you can see the dip in 2014, and that's because from 2014 we have no data from Crimea and eastern part of Ukraine. So that's a thing to keep in mind. And this is the amount of waste recycled. And this is just an image of how we went about to compute the correlation coefficients. We did a Chupro coefficient, and so these are the results. And here is a table of the industries in Ukraine, which the split of the percentage of expenditures they spent on environmental protection. And we can see that the industries that have most biggest proportion of expenditure on environmental protection is the manufacturing industry and mining and quarrying, because they have almost 30%, so 29.4 and 27.3% respectively, which is kind of making sense because they are the ones who are probably the largest polluters, and that's why the percentage. And in the context of autocratic mechanisms, we suggest the following mechanisms to stimulate the more efficient waste management in Ukraine. First of all, in the conditions of depletion of non-renewable and most natural resources, we suggest that there should be investment tax credits that reduce the amount of corporate income tax by a certain percentage. And also, we suggest tax benefits to innovate for innovative and creative programs for waste recycling. Namely, for example, to create conditions of openness, accountability, and transparency. And also the need to optimally combine environmentally friendly management with economic success. So in order to do that, we suggest that we need to stimulate the businesses in a way that they would decide for themselves that it is more beneficial for them to recycle or sell their waste credits to other businesses as opposed to just dispose of the waste. Because if they just dispose of the waste, it will be inefficient for them and expensive for them. So we need to stimulate those government policies in order for them to be beneficial to sell those tax credits or recycle them themselves. And in the case, if they invest in infrastructure, waste management infrastructure and recycling infrastructure, that amount of expenditures they make in those investments, we will reduce their taxes, corporate tax, by the amount of their investments for the waste recycling facilities.
I'm sorry, Rostislav. I'm sorry. Make your conclusions, please.
Yes, so I'm actually just starting to conclude now. So we say that the experience of waste management abroad has shown that market relations are not able to effectively regulate waste management. This is why there should be government intervention in the form of such policies, because if there is no recycling, then there will be environmental crisis first, and there will be shortage of certain types of raw materials. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please ask, and Slava Ukraini.
I welcome questions. If any point you are interested in now, please, participants. Yes, one question in chat, Rostislav, please, from Volodymyr Streltsov. Do you see?
I see the question. Do you see any possibility to export waste? Well, I think that such possibilities always exist, but it will depend on the country we export the waste to. For example, I know that countries who are the largest exporters of waste, for example, China, they are now growing conscious about the fact that they will have to do something with that waste, and they do not really want to import waste to China in the amounts that they used in the past. So they are growing conscious, and with that respect, they might raise prices in order for people to export waste to them. And I think that we need to invest in our own facilities for waste recycling, because in the short term it's easy to export waste. However, I think if we are aiming for the long term, especially now we are in such a period of renewal, rebuilding, and everything, considering the situation with Russia, I think we should invest in the long-term facilities to have our own recycling facilities in Ukraine. If that answers the question.
Thank you, Volodymyr. Yeah, thanks, Volodymyr. Is great. So thank you very much. So we can go to another paper. So I have received Oksana's file, and please, Oksana, you can start. I show the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Good day for all. Today I'm present our research from Khmelnytskyi National University. And first of all, I would like to say the general things about what is the main idea of our researching. Our researching actualizes the necessity of further improvement of the concept of renewable energy sources, development according to the requirement of modern energy efficient direction of the leading countries of the world. And for this purpose, the current state and world tendencies of investing into renewable energy sources as one of the prospective types of economic activity and analyzed. The main role of renewable energy in the concept of sustainable development is emphasized, and the ever integration course of Ukraine in the direction of its energy policy is highlighted. It is proved that foreign investment is an effective mechanism of development of the domestic market of renewable energy sources. The task of analyzing global trends in the development of renewable energy has been solved. The modern model of green economy development in Ukraine has been justified, and the main causes and obstacles to the introduction of renewable energy in the domestic economy have been identified. The prospects of foreign investment in the development of modern green development have been attained. And for this purpose, the following methods were used, and as a result, the conclusion, and it will be later. So, I want to introduce that today hydropower is the main source of renewable energy, but the development of solar and wind energy, its share has decreased 53% of all renewable global capacity and 69% of electricity generated. As a result, the share of solar and wind energy increased to 18% and to 24% respectively. According to the plans of the European Commission, the share of renewable energy sources is expected to increase to 50% of the total electricity produced by 2030. You can see this on the picture figure number 1. Contributes to these positive tendencies lower prices for solar photovoltaic models globally from 2010 to 2017. Prices for the production of solar stations increased by 80%, and the average cost per kilowatt energy produced decreased by 73% and amounted to $0.1 US. So figure number 2, average electricity production rate in volt shows this these things. Starting from 2008, the Ukrainian government enforced a green tariff, series of tax and customs duties to encourage local producers to buy the equipment and stimulate the development of green energy. At the same time, Ukraine proves its opponents and renounced to accept foreign investment in the development of its own renewable energy sources. Thus, the national energy strategy envisages a significant breakthrough in the development of new production capacities. On the figure 3, increase in production capacity of renewable energy sources in Ukraine, we see the moving of the and changing these numbers from 2008 and 2018. Ukraine also has secured the support of financial guarantees from such organizations as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Investment Bank. European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, European Investment Bank, Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and International Finance Corporation, as well as German banks, which have distributed over $1.4 billion together since 2009. On the figure 4, you can see investments in Ukraine from donors from this period from 2008 till 2018. Ukraine has a strong legal and regulatory framework that is constantly being improved and developed, as well as open access to international financing and professional staff with the necessary skills and experience to implement complex projects. Thus, according to the forecasts by analysts, production of wind and solar energy in Ukraine is expected to grow by 15% soon. The figure 5 forecast of electricity production, you can see the changing of from 2015 to plans of the 2035. Also, conclusions. In the current conditions of functioning, there is a need to reconsider approaches to the development of the economy of the country. Investment in renewable energy sources is an important component of environment and economic policy of many countries in the world. The results of our research indicate positive trends to increase the volume of renewable energy sources in global scale. The analysis of indicators of development of renewable energy sector in Ukraine allows us to make a conclusion about profitability and privatization of this market for investors. This is explained by the positive dynamics of Ukraine in accordance with the approved political course towards integration into the Europe, international obligations, and the acting system of state incentives for the development of renewable energy projects. An additional factor is accelerated greening of the economy is a constant increase in the demand of the Ukrainian society to improve the environmental situation, quality and durability of life. So it was a conclusion of our researching, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Oksana, very much for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments on this report? I want to ask you, Oksana, in your talk today, you looked at the investment prospect for the renewable development of Ukraine. And I want to ask you, what do you think, how to intensify investment in renewable energy today and in the post-war period in Ukraine? And what investment solutions do you offer for our country?
So thank you for your question. I want to say that today we have different problems. One of the main global terrible what we have, it's a war in our country, and it's also make influence for our economy for the first time and for living of all people. So many scientists and researchers tell us about that renewable sector is a very popular sector in different countries, and we have all opportunities to develop the sector in our country. And I think when it will be the end of this terrible situation, terrible war, we may do all the best in our country to develop our economy, to develop renewable energy sources, for example, and we have all opportunities for this, and I think it will be a success for us.
Thank you, Oksana, very much. I completely agree with you. Does somebody have any questions? Okay, and now I give a floor to Pavlov Konstantin with his paper about calculation of the efficiency of function of electricity market of the western region of Ukraine. Please. Please wait a second. There is some problems with connecting. Yes, we can see your screen. Please show us the presentation and do it full screen size. It's okay. I'm sorry. Please open your microphone and we can see your presentation.
Good afternoon.
And show your presentation at the screen. Because we can see only our online class. Yes. And do it full screen size. Oh, okay. It's okay. Sorry.
Calculation of the efficiency of the electricity market of the western region of Ukraine. In the introduction, one of the strategic description of Ukraine economic development in the modernization of the electricity sector and instituting the regulated process of the electricity market in the region. Electricity generation and distribution companies in the area as part of the unified energy system of Ukraine. Impact socioeconomic development and increase the level of energy security and independence of Ukraine. Today, the scientific computing focus of the liberalization of the region electricity market and the active in production of renewable energy sources, it will be impossible to achieve strategic uh, goal to overcome the environment and the economic crisis and achieve energy saving principle without solve this problem. The experiment of the world's leading continue uh, convincing process that electricity sector reform materials and models. However, despite the significant number of the territorial and practical development, fusion receive requires theoretical and methodological approach to the prospect of the region electricity market and the need to form a holistic function on the regulation, organization, and economic mechanism. Given the lack of joint scientific work of the STEMIC and specialists that is need to study this process. Result detection. We apply a standard approach to analyzing the competitiveness of the Western region based on the calculation return of indication and the result obtainment table 1. We see that the overall competitiveness of the region is relatively low. As, as can be seen from table 2, Ivano-Frankivsk region becomes the most competitive region in 2020. The lowest position in people by the Rivne region 0.06. According to calculation, the studied region compact closely with each other. The below of the coefficient is a range of 0.02, which is relatively low, and identification allow efficiency of energy market. After all, below of the index should be in range 0 to 1. In general, we are efficiency of the electricity market in the western region moreover be for example can service contribution of the climate organization low carbon Ukraine on the causes of inefficient operation of the electricity market in Ukraine, lack of competition. The education system of subsidizing the population with cheap electricity, non-transport of trade exclusive regulation of the state generation, based on the calculation of indicators and the result object double stream, we see that the overall competitiveness of the region is relatively high. According to calculation, the study region competency combine closely with each other. The value of the coefficient is within 0.9, which is relatively high and indication a high efficiency of energy market. As can be seen from table 4, most competitive region in 2020 was the Rivne region, 0.99. The lowest position is occupied by the transportation region, 0.758. In general, we are convinced that the efficiency of the electricity market in the western region is relatively high. In our option, the readily different results of assessing the competitiveness of the electricity market compared to the standard approach are due to several factors. Assessment of market competitiveness was carried out in various aspects. In the standard approach, the macro aspect is assessed. In the approach with threshold value, the micro aspect is analyzed piece of all.
Любомир, I'm sorry. I want to ask you to finish with the conclusions, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Любомир, and your presentation is very interesting, and I want to ask all participants, are there any questions to the speaker? Okay, so move next, and thank you, Любомир. And I want to ask Victoria Hausto, are you here? I can find you online.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, but I am.
Thank you. So I would like you to present your report.
Yeah. Please tell me if you see my presentation.
Yes, we see it, but yes, it is full screen presentation. Okay, so it's on PDF.
So can I start? Yes.
You're welcome.
Dear colleagues, one of the most pressing global problems of mankind is the increase in emissions of greenhouse gases, primarily carbon dioxide, and the resulting climate change. In order to solve this problem, world leaders have concluded a number of international agreements providing for the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. Ukraine has also undertaken ambitious commitments to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The largest carbon dioxide emitter among the Ukrainian economic sector is industry, with the major share accounted for by the electric power industry. In view of Ukraine's obligations to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the implementation of this decision cannot but affect the country's economy precisely because industry energy is its main economic sector. The situation is complicated by Ukraine's undertaking significant obligation with its fuel and energy complex technologically unprepared for such changes. Under these conditions, it is necessary to analyze how exactly the current situation and the structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation affect the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions and whether further decarbonization of the national economy is possible without hindering the socio-economic development of the country. Data on the total greenhouse gas emissions by individual sector, according to the International Energy Agency (IEA), are given in slide 2. Currently, the IEA website contains only data up to 2019. The purpose of our study was to assess the state and the structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation and their impact on reducing carbon dioxide emissions. In 2018, Ukraine's electricity generation capacities decreased by 10.6% compared to 1990 and by 2.1% compared to year 2000. Slide 3. At the same time, the volume of the Ukrainian electricity generation in 2018 compared to 1990 decreased by 46.6% and compared to year 2000 by 4%. That this trend persisting. Thus, currently, there is a significant amount of standby electricity generation capacities in the country. The classification of Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by flexibility is given in slide 4. And the structure of Ukraine's electricity generation capacities by type of flexibility in year 2000 and 2018 is presented in slide 5. Over the studied period, the share of Ukraine's flexible electricity generation capacities increased by 6.01%, that of non-flexible capacities by 3.85%, while with partially flexible capacities a decrease by 9.86% was observed. Slide 6 shows the increase and decrease in the share of Ukraine's electricity generation by type of flexibility. As can be seen, in Ukraine, the generation of electricity from non-flexible and flexible generation types increased by 10.32% and 2.18%. Slide 7 shows the calculation of structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by type of flexibility for the period from year 2000 to 2018. And slide 8 shows the trends in structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities by type of flexibility in year 2000 to 28. The next slide demonstrates that positive structural changes occurred in terms of flexible generation capacities 0.4701 and non-flexible ones 0.0351, while negative shifts were observed in those of partially flexible type minus 0.0886. The trends in structural changes in Ukraine electricity generation by type of flexibility for year 2000 to 2018 are presented in the next slide. As can be seen, positive structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation by type of flexibility occurred in terms of flexible 0.2633 and non-flexible 0.17 for 3 types of generation, whereas with partially flexible generation a decline minus 0.2202 was observed. Slide 10 presents the calculation of the integral coefficients of structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by type of flexibility. The behavior of the integral indicators of structural changes in Ukraine electricity generation capacities and electricity generation in terms of flexibility in year 2000 to 2018 is shown on slide 11. As can be seen, Ukraine's electricity generation in terms of flexibility underwent more significant structural changes than its electricity capacities. Slide 12 presents general characteristics of structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by type of flexibility in year 2000 to 2018. As demonstrated by the data, during the period under study, the largest structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation occurred in terms of flexible electricity generation. As concerns partially flexible generation over this period and inconsiderable decline in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and a significant decline in its electricity generation were observed. This is due to the fact that, firstly, during this period, there was no need to increase Ukraine's electricity generation capacities, especially those of non-flexible and partially flexible generation type. Secondly, increasing the actual generation of electricity in the country at the expense of non-flexible electricity generation is inefficient. Let us analyze how the structure of the energy sector change in terms of types of electricity generation. The classification of Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by generation type is as follows. Slide 13. As the statistics show, the share of TPPs and CHPs in the structure of Ukraine's electricity generation capacities in year 2000 and 2018 decreased by 9.8, while that of other types of generation increased. This slide. The structure of Ukraine's electricity generation by type of generation in year 2000 and 2018 is shown in slide 15. Slide 16 contains the calculations of the indices and directions of structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by type of generation. Based on our analysis, positive structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities by types of generation occurred in terms of RES and HPP, while a decrease was observed in TPP and NPP. Besides positive structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation by type of generation occurred in terms of RES and NPP and a decrease in terms of TPP and HPP. Slide 17 demonstrates the behavior of the integral coefficients of structural changes in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities and electricity generation by types of generation in year 2000 to 2018. As we can see, the largest structural change in Ukraine's electricity generation capacities was 0.0445, very low structural shift, while the structural change for the entire analyzed period amounted to 0.0796, low structural shift. The largest structural change in the country's electricity generation that occurred in 2010 to 17, was 0.0987 low structural shift, while the structural change for the entire analyzed period amounted to 0.1232 low structural shift.
I'm sorry, I want you to ask to be shorter. Please go to the conclusions.
Okay, conclusions. The decrease in Ukraine's electricity generation was more significant than the decrease in its generation capacity. This is especially true for thermal generation. As a result, the decrease in electricity generation has led to a reduction in carbon dioxide emissions in the country. Over the analyzed period in the structure of Ukraine's electricity generation capacities, the most significant decrease occurred in the share of partially flexible capacities thermal generation. As concerns the volume of electricity generation, there was a decrease in partially flexible capacities and an increase in non-flexible capacities. The structural changes in the electric power industry of Ukraine were not adequate to the structural changes in the country's economy, which has led to a shortage of flexible capacities, but also resulted in the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions due to a decline in electricity generation. And the state of Ukraine's energy generation capacities requires urgent modernization to ensure their safe and uninterrupted operation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. May I ask you some question? I understand and we believe that Ukraine's carbon-free economy is the main trend for the future. What do you think? What is the major reforms of the Ukrainian electricity generation are needed today? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat your questions?
I ask you about Ukraine's carbon-free economy. It is the major trend for the development of our economy for the future. And I want to ask you, on your mind, what major reforms of the Ukrainian electricity generation are needed today? So I understand the speaker is not here. Maybe she has some problems with connected. Move to another paper. Under discussion, there are the following problems relating to European Green Deal, and I would like to make a presentation to Mr. Tsebenko Oleg.
Yeah, hello everybody. So I have to use a full screen, yes, to show.
Yes.
Yes.
You need to.
Like this.
The central. Okay, it is. Deal with your presentation. Okay, we see.
Can you see it?
As soon as okay, you can start.
Yeah, you can see the presentation. Hello everybody. I would like to present the presentation for the topic the European Green Deal, shaping the future of the Eastern Partnership. So the speakers is me, Oleg Tsebenko. I'm representative, and all my colleagues are representative of Lviv National Polytechnic University. So let's start. The introduction. The actuality of our topic is there is structural transformation of energy policy of the states in the modern world. As the current global trend towards to green policy in all spheres of economy and public life. The third one of the actuality is the integration of environmental and climate priorities into EU policy. The priorities of the EU Green Deal diplomacy in the world are shaping new direction of this policy toward the Eastern Partnership. So the dependence of the Eastern Partnership countries on the energy resources of the Russian Federation. So actually, I wish to explain some about the Eastern Partnership is a EU initiative starts from 2009, and there's 6 countries. There's Ukraine, Belarus, Azerbaijan, Moldova, and Georgia. 6, yes. The one main sphere of cooperation is the energy sphere, and the Green Deal is also the best one sphere to cooperate with the 6 countries. So let's move. The key mechanism for the implementation of the European Green Deal in the Eastern Partnership countries are so the Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum is the panel on environmental and climate changes, is a working group, energy, transport, environment, and climate changes, is a meeting of high and middle level of officials, is a meeting in the level of president and higher representatives of EU and the 6 countries, and also is a Ministry of meeting of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also is a summit of the heads of the states one time per 2 years. Also, we can identify the 4 living clusters of green policy integration of the EP countries. Is the European Green Deal countries. Yes, it's a Republic of Moldova. It means that that country have the most chances to have a Green Deal policy like in EU. And the second cluster is the countries aspiring to the European Green Deal. It's also Ukraine and Georgia. And the vortex and the third block is countries staging the European Green Deal. It's Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Belarus. It means that the European principles of green energy are not understanding by the government in that countries. So we use to analyze the situation with the Green Deal in the countries. We use the index of energy transition index that shows us how the energy of that country is ready to transform to green energy. Yes, and that index shows us that the highest level as the best situation is in Georgia. Also, the worst situation is in Ukraine and Moldova, according to this index. Also, we use the sub-index of Eastern Partnership is a climate policy. And here you can see the dynamics from 2011 is the first time when the sub-index was made until 2021. Yes, in here you can see that 4 countries has some better situation, and in case of Belarus and Ukraine, there are some decrease in the last years. Belarus has a 0.4, and also Ukraine has 0.74. Yes. Also, current situation, and here in this graph we show the correlation of Eastern Partnership between the general index of Eastern Partnership and also between the sub-index of climate and environment policy. And here you can difference in Azerbaijan, the general index is 0.44, and as a climate policy is better one is 0.61, and also the big difference is in Moldova is the difference between 0 and 0.94. In another country, situation between the general policy and general transformation to EU standards is closer and climate policy. So some threats to the implementation of the European Green Deal in the Eastern Partnership in global climate changes, a low level of economic development of the EP countries, and practical lack of legislation in the field of green energy is a lack of common vision of all countries in the region on the implementation of European Green Deal rules. Also is observance of energy system of the EP countries, is a lack of national course of green energy, climate policy, and the green economy, corruption in the Eastern Partnership. So the European expert think that corruption is the main problem of Eastern Partnership countries in the way to the EU. It's also is a low level of foreign investment, is the energy dependence of the countries of the region on the Russian Federation. So also is a big problem. Yeah, is absolute technology in the field of renewable energy is also harmful technology in the field of energy, is a lack of sustainable climate policy, is a low level of ecological culture of the society of the EAP countries. Possible scenarios for the development of Eastern Green Deal in the Eastern Partnership countries. The first one, unlikely option, is all Eastern Partnership countries are undergoing significant changes in the Green Deal. Most likely option, the Eastern Partnership countries will be divided into two blocks, associated three countries, it's Ukraine, Belarus, and Moldova, are making the most progress in this direction. The rest of the countries will have a weak level of implementation of the European Green Deal. And the third one is the EAP countries will refuse to implement the European Green Deal, unlikely option. And some recommendations, the launch of international process, the establishment of partnership and agreements with countries with common environment and climate interest, to ensure the proper institution capacity of the relevant ministers and agencies as the main tools for decision making and implementation at the international level, to strengthen the information capacity. The transition of the countries to the European Green Deal should be based on the principle of openness and transparency, public involvement in the process. And for the conclusion is in the conclusion, I can say that in the prospects, the significant process in implementation of the EU Green Deal can be expected in the near future in Ukraine, Georgia, and the Republic of in Moldova, and also the three countries, Belarus, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. There will be no major change in the direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Oleg, for your interesting presentation. And participants, feel free to ask if you have any question to Oleg.
So I can ask for your previous question.
Okay.
If it's possible, you ask the previous representatives about the reform in Ukraine, or is it bad? So, like in Ukraine, there's a big problem with that reform, with the reform of Great Green Deal. Yes, we are in a very bad level. There's very big list of good practice of Green Deal in EU, and we have to ask that reforms, that cases, and implement it in Ukraine. In Western Ukraine, we haven't enough renewable energy, so we have invest in renewable in energy also, and we have to implement that, because in a nearest future, like 100 years, there's be a big problem with the resources. If we do not do that, there's be some big problem.
Thank you, Oleg. It's very interesting point of view. Yes, I agree with you. Does somebody has any questions? No. So thank you, Oleg. And let's move on to the next paper. So this paper considers the main aspects of hierarchical cluster analysis of regions of Ukraine relative ecological state. Please, Valery Matsko, take a talk. Are you here? Valerie. So we'll wait a second and move on. Maybe next, okay? Next paper is on architectonics of cities and community sustainable development. I would like to ask the group of authors, Viktor Timokhin, Nadia Shebek, Alexander Lhovets, to present their report.
Hello, my name is Alexander Lhovets.
show your presentation to the screen.
Do you see it?
Yes, it is loaded. We can see it. Please start.
Okay. Hello, my name is Alexander Olkhevets. I'm sorry my camera doesn't work. I present the results of our study on the topic of architectonics of cities and communities' sustainable development, which was conducted by researchers Nadia Shebek, Viktor Timokhin, Alexander Olkhevets, and Yulia Tretyak from Kyiv National University of Construction and Architecture. The research develops the primary archetypical ideas of sustainable development, which were proclaimed by prominent scientists Podolinsky, Spengler, Teilhard de Chardin, Vernadsky, Berg in the 19th, 20th centuries. Interpretation and fulfillment of prognostic potential of the primary noospheric ideas is an urgent problem in the context of sustainable development concept studies, focusing on its internal dynamics and architectonic patterns. The stability of the links between the processes of evolutionary, historical, and sustainable development of the city, fragments of its architectural environment, and the communities allow us to consider the issue from a synergistic and socionics perspective. This study aims to identify similar trends in the dynamics of the formation and functioning of cities, the self-organization of the urban population, and the development of recycling technologies. We have applied the methods for polarizing the stages of cyclical development of the settlements, the socio-spatial organization, architectural environment, and the consistent improvement of recycling technologies. During the research, we have established that internally polarized cycles of sustainable city development covers the processes of dispersion and concentration, self-organization and adaptation of urban functions and forms, as well as urban communities and recycling technologies. The conducted research has revealed additional reserves of sustainable development of settlements and town planning activity. We believe transportation and pedestrian activity to be among such latent reserves for energy accumulation. Reduction in transportation volumes and the intensity of pedestrian activities increases people's free time. Free time can be devoted to intellectual activities such as invention and creativity, which ultimately contributes to the constant renewal of the urban environment. In this sense, the formation of urban communities and environments able to cope with both the minimum and maximum volumes of transportation and pedestrian activities as different stages becomes a primary goal and an important indicator of sustainable development in general. We propose to consider the architectonic of urban communities as a basis for the settlement's sustainable development. Socio-spatial organization of settlements is one of the conditions for its achievement. It provides for the dispersed residents of persons with opposite value systems and the ability of public spaces free communication of all comers. Another condition is consistent dominance of representativities of the socionical quadrants of initiators, implementers, critics, and improvers in local authorities. The development of recycling technologies continues. Its transformation interrelates with the development of urban settlements and undergoes the same stages of evolutionary alteration. There are reuse of finished products, the emergence of recycling technologies, reorganization of production, and the development of technologies for processing surpluses into materials for other industries. In the course of the research, made the following conclusions. The development of settlements and urban communities and the transformation of recycling technologies are undergoing phases of dispersion, self-organization, concentration, and adaptation. Urban planning, taking into account the specific needs of residents with different psychological types, will lead to the formation of friendly communities in settlements. Formation of local self-government teams, taking into account the world outlook of their workers, will accelerate the achievement of the real purposes of communities. Consistent development of waste recycling technologies leads to the emergence of...
I'm sorry, Alexander. I'm sorry, Alexander. I need to say to our participants that next section, section number 2, will start in 10 minutes and we may be shorter. I ask you, Alexander, to write your email on chat because your report is very interesting, and if somebody will ask you and they can write you, except me too. Okay, thank you, Alexander.
Okay.
And now we are heading to the final report of the session, and with attention is directed to the problem of secular transformation of business as a global trend of sustainable socio-economic environment. Oля Kostyuk, please, you are welcome.
Yes, I'm here. My name is Olga Kostyuk, and I want to present. Yes. Yes, do you see my presentation?
Yes, we see it, please. But yes. I want to ask you, be short, okay?
Yes. The results of the research of circular transformation of business as a global trend of sustainable socio-economic environment are brought to your attention. At the first slide. On the second slide, we can see the relevance of the study is due to the fact that under conditions of uncertainty caused by pandemic, new challenges and tasks come up, in particular green transformation in the context of environmental and technological security, of sustainable development of the socio-economic system has become a global trend in Europe. To achieve long-term goal of sustainable development of the socio-economic system in competitive conditions, the widespread introduction of green innovative technologies in the real sector of the economic is needed. The purpose of the study is to comprehensively highlight the role of circular business transformation, identity trends in the introduction of green technologies, predict carbon dioxide emissions trends, in the context of sustainable development of the carbon neutral economy, and develop proposals in the direction of indicators for the formation of a model for sustainable development of the social economic environment in the context of circular business transformation. Now we can see on the slide. On the second slide, the concept of circular transformation involves the relationship ecology economy and is the foundation for the implementation of the concept of sustainable development of social, economic, and environment, provides balanced development through energy and environmentally friendly food, focusing on land use and optimal resources management, transition on more efficient and resource saving technologies aimed at reducing pollutant emissions, stopping resources depletion, and mitigate climate change. To determine the specific goals and objectives are promotion the principles of green growth is important to understand the current state and trends in the main areas related to green growth. At the next slide, yes. The dynamics of new renewable energy sources in Europe for 2020, we see figure 1 shows that the development of renewable generation. Renewable energy sources in 2020 increased to 38% from 22 in 2010 years. So it is the main source of energy in Europe. It's slide on the next slide, we see the Global Green Economy Index, GGEI, developed by the Dual Citizen Rating Agency in 2010, measures the efficiency and progress of green economy in
Oля, I am sorry.
130 countries around the world.
I'm sorry. I ask you to make conclusions of your report, okay?
Oh, okay. We see very interesting figure about indicators of sustainable development of the socio-economic environment through the circular transformation of business, such as economic, ecological, and social, and such as indicators we see on the screen. And conclusions we see now. Circular business transformation is a driver of sustainable development of the socio-economic environment where industrial systems are regenerated and restored. In this direction, it is necessary to reform the state in environmental control and control of industrial pollution, support projects for modernization of industry on the base of public-private partnership, use of alternative fuels, including biomass, reform of waste management, and implementation of circular economy.
Thank you.
And finally, the transition to a green economy will provide the transition of economies to sustainable trajectories through the creation of new green employment, promotion of renewable energy sources, improving waste management, minimizing risks, and developing appropriate public policies to establish cooperation within and between.
Thank you, Ola, very much. Thank you, Ola, very much. And somebody asked us to remember about the short time of our work, but to complete our work, I congratulate all of you on giving such pleasant and useful report. And now I want to ask the head of our session, Professor Margasova, to congratulate all of us and to say some words for all participants. And then we gave the word and gave the head of this conference to Nazar Podolet with session 2. Please, Victoria.
Thank you, dear Sofia. Dear participants to the conference, dear colleagues, guests, organizations, thank you so much for the interesting reports. Chernihiv Polytechnic National University sends its sincere congratulations on the occasion of the opening of the 9th International Science Conference. This event traditionally brings together Ukraine and foreign scientists and graduates, your researchers, young researchers. War is conformations of muscles and nerves. The situation around Ukraine's borders illustrated this quite clearly. However, the fact remains that the war is still a confrontation of intellects. Science, along with the military and diplomacy, could be a third force in containing hybrid and the hot threats from Russia. Even war is not able to prevent our science and scholars from thinking, developing their research ideas and publishing them to the world, because the strength of the scientific community is in constant development, unity and cohesion. What is why such a conference continues to unite us to so that despite our moral fighting, they can continue to ensure the community of our scientific work and bring our common victory closer. Thank you so much for the interesting reports and peace, goodness and victory.
Thank you, Professor Margasova. So I'd like to finish by thanking all of you too for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you at our